100 years old. And I celebrated Kiwanis celebration of 100th anniversary in early April. Shawano had their 100th last October. So we've got a decent history of clubs here. So I look forward to you having another 50 years. Of course, I've been district governor since forever, no, July 1st, 2023, and I visit your club in October, and then I'm coming back. So I do have a certificate for you, and I'm very much interested in hearing some of your stories and being able to bring those with me. I've been able to visit with all 39 clubs within the district, 5,100 miles during the course of I always say semester because I'm a university girl. And then I finished them all before close to December 11th because my daughter was coming home on the 13th for Christmas, and I wanted to make sure I wasn't fooling around Wisconsin at that time. But it was a great experience. One of the funniest things I've always said is that I was very efficient in scheduling my visits because we go from Appleton South to Houghton and Marquette. So I spent a week in Houghton, Hancock, and I spent a week in Marquette. And then of course you've got the Wausau clubs, Antigo, Eagle River. I've had clubs in a ski resort, clubs in a university setting, clubs in church. So clubs meet all over the place, but it was certainly a great experience. But in October, when I was trying to be efficient in scheduling my clubs, I got called for jury duty. You know what a shock that is to get that in the mail? You got all your clubs lined up all through November and early December, and suddenly you get this piece of paper saying that you're being called for jury duty. So I did call them up because I got delayed. You could get one delay, so I called them up and I took during Thanksgiving week, so just picked Thanksgiving week thinking that maybe you wouldn't have a lot of things there, and I did luck out, so I didn't get jury duty. But it's been a great experience, not just the club visits, but also being able to tell the story about Rotary. The theme for the year is Create Hope in the World, and I've been stressing in my visits that Rotary does create hope in the world. We create hope in the work that we do toward ending polio, and we're really hoping we only have 4 cases left, and 2 in Afghanistan and 2 in Pakistan, and we're just looking for ending it and being able to celebrate in 2026 the total eradication. So I certainly request all of you to consider keeping your giving to polio, because we're not done yet. And then I always talk about creating hope in your communities, and you do that. Clubs are very good in working with their communities and giving back. And then of course, creating hope in your clubs and celebrating the 50th anniversary is something that is good. It's hoping that your club has already managed to make it through 50 years, and we hope it does another 50 years. So on that note, I would really like to give you, it's not real elegant, or but these were sent to me probably July 2023. I had 3 of them, Shawano, New, and what did I just say? Kiwani. So here you are for our 50th anniversary. 1974, you were chartered. So it would be really nice to hear some of your experiences. I know I looked up your mission statement on your website. It was Green Bay West is committed to serving local, national, and international communities with special dedication to enhancing the lives of youth and international cooperation. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much, Julie. We appreciate it. All right, I think again, one of the things we wanted to do today was share some of those stories, and so I greatly appreciate some I'm not sure, past Green Bay West Rotarians being here this morning, and really with the sake of time. I think me personally, and probably a lot of the group, would appreciate hearing from Rick, Diane, and Dennis with you being here. We appreciate your time, and as I think about 50 years, you 3 were in the club a long time, and a big part of why we're here 50 years later undoubtedly is because of you 3 and some of the other individuals that were so essential to this club, its success, and the impacts it had. So I can think back, I'm going to give a story for about 10 seconds and then let other people talk. When I was president about 5 years ago, this exact time, COVID hit. Who knew how that was going to affect our club? What our club did at that time, which you three were incredibly impactful on that, your ideas, was we went out, we bought gift cards from restaurants and retailers that all of a sudden had to close. Some of these individuals just wrote checks out of their pockets and just donated those gift cards to Salvation Army, and figured out a way to make an impact when there wasn't a lot happening. And that was just, I think, a key moment of our club when there wasn't a lot going on in any Rotary clubs and any organizations, and we just figured out a way to continue to keep things going my last couple of months as president. And that was really these individuals and a few others that made it happen at that point. Now is another one of those times where, what are we going to do right now? You guys made it happen. So with that, I'm going to turn the floor over. I'm going to stop talking and thank you guys for being here, and thank you, Julia, for presenting us with this. Thank you very much.
Well, Bob was making eye contact with me. That was a mistake. So I will jump in and I will simply say that what Bob just mentioned highlighted that COVID response. That's what Rotarians can do. We've got a mindset of let's take action. And I know some folks that I can call on for help, and I know some people that can get things done, and that's what Rotarians do. We're called to service. It was our friends at the Rotary Club of Green Bay that gave birth to this organization, because as I was chatting with a minute ago with one of your members, 1970, 1971, 1972, we had 3 bridges crossing the Fox River, none of which were the bridges you may have crossed to get here this morning. The bridges were old, they were 2-lane, and they were low, and there was an east side and a west side, and never the twain would meet. And it was 2 different cities at one time, literally and figuratively. And the downtown club, Rotary Club of Green Bay, said, we've got this stuff going on the west side. There's this old farm country called Ashwaubenon. They're growing. They're going to put in an industrial park. We should get some members. We should get Rotary growing out there. And a fellow named Bill Lucas, who worked at Northwest Engineering on the west side, and a couple other folks. Who were some of the other founders of the group? Joe Van Dyke, Fulton Van Dyke, which was over on the west side.
Dr. McTaggart, who was the superintendent of schools at Ashwaubenon, he recommended me.
And they went out and recruited a few gentlemen at that time, who then recruited members. Howard Hogard Construction, was on West Mason area, and his neighbor was Fred Murphy, and I worked with, or for Fred Murphy Supply. I worked with his cousin. So that guy came into our office and said, we need a kid to join the service club. You're the one, go over there. And that was the greatest thing that happened to me, one of the greatest in my career. It was just a great step up for me. So that's how Green Bay West, and it was west. And I lived on the west side at that time, and that's why I was allowed to join. But that's how the club, in my memory, became a reality. And boy, I've seen a lot of faces come through. And that's the most gratifying part for me, is all the wonderful people I've known. I'm going to turn it over to Dennis, who joined a few months after I.
Thank you, Rick. You were almost at the beginning of the club.
Yep.
But
Yep.
I came in April of '76, and what attracted me was the international aspect of Rotary. And because I had the privilege of studying outside of the country for 4 years in the '60s, and I wanted something where I could stay in touch with the international scene. And so when it was explained to me that Rotary is one word, it's called Rotary International. That's one word. So I'm going to focus on 2 really important events that took place in the late '80s. I think the most important thing that happened to Rotary in the last 50 years was the introduction of women. Women have saved Rotary,
Amen.
and they will continue to enliven and give us a dimension that we never had. And of course, Rick, you remember, we had some old geezer tables who said, no way, no women, this is a men's deal. So that, I think, is the second really memorable event was May 24, 1988. It was an international convention in Philadelphia, and they were celebrating the Polio Plus program. And so let me read from the 100-year service history of Rotary. It was remembered as one of the most exciting moments in Rotary's first century. So we were at this huge auditorium. Lights had been strung around the auditorium. Each Rotary country announced its fundraising effects. They had set 120 million as a goal, which right now it looks kind of small. So there were lights in the whole, and I was there with Levon and two boys, and they still talk about it. And let me tell you that one bulb would light up for every 800,000 children who could now be immunized. So this long fuse would be lit all around the auditorium. And so if it all went around, then it would mean that we had $120 million for eradicating polio. So there were 44 committees around the world that were assessed a certain amount of money to make 120. So they all started, and they were saying what they, and United States, Puerto Rico, and the Bahamas was number 44. All the rest, and after the 43, they had only 100 million. So the question was how much the US and the Bahamas and the Puerto Rico would give. So there was a drum roll and all the rest. And the US committee exceeded its goal by raising 119 million.
Wow.
Which, I mean, it was pandemonium. And I'm just reading from the document. The remaining lights lit up, the fireworks erupted, and a marching band burst onto the convention floor. But even the band was unheard by the 17,000 people clapping and shouting and hugging one another as 15,000 balloons fell from the ceiling and were summarily burst. It was a day when even the RI president, Keller, cried as many thousands with him. It was, as he declared, and the commemorating certificates handed to each attendee is Rotary's finest hour. And even my kids remember the event. It was celebration in capital letters. So in the 87 and 88, those two events, bringing women into Rotary and polio program, there was a huge burst of increase in numbers of Rotary. Our club had the first woman Rotarian in the district, Jenny Carpenter, who was the administrative assistant of Bob Antoine at Green Bay Foods. Wow. So we have some damn good history that we participated in. So thank you very much.